Hello world, my name is Tim Ruswick, and today I wanted to talk about side projects, specifically whether or not you should juggle multiple projects and how all that goes. I want to say, first of all, that I'm just a game dev like you. I'm not some magical genie god that can tell you what to do. I can just tell you a little bit about my experience and whether or not I could juggle side projects, and then you can use that data to make decisions for yourself, because that's what any sane human being should do on the internet, right? Don't just listen to them YouTubers. Okay, so first of all, this is something I've changed my opinion on, actually, because for the longest time, I could not finish anything. And finishing is related to starting. Hear me out here. If you're going to keep starting projects, you need to be able to finish projects, and sometimes starting can be continually starting, serial starting over and over again can be shiny object syndrome, which can prevent you from ever finishing everything. So that is the biggest threat, in my opinion, to continually starting projects, to having side projects, all that stuff, is just the continually starting. And that's the loop that I was stuck in for the longest amount of time. And that's when I decided to hunker down and finish one project and not touch anything else until I finished it. Now, I did do game jam stuff like that, but the games that I did were limited to like the game jam. So like I could join game jams and stuff, but I was not allowed to finish those projects like commercially or expand them or anything outside of the jam time period. So that really helped. That game was Phallophobia, The Fear of Love, that launched on Steam in 2020. And that was a major milestone for me, because I launched a commercial indie game on Steam, which had been a dream of mine forever. And that made me realize, like, hey, I can finish things. I can do stuff. When I started my next project, well, in between, so I launched Phallophobia on itch, and then a year later I launched on Steam, and in between there I had started another project, but I did not finish it. I had lost interest in it, I had lost motivation, and I burned myself out in the process. And so after the Steam launch, I decided to take up one of my game jam games and push that to finishing like a commercial type of project. And that you can currently wishlist that on Steam. It's called Battle Barn Tactics. The link is down below, and that is currently in production. But one of the things I learned was I got to a phase with Battle Barn, which was the same phase as Cypherpunk, which was the other game that I worked on. And it was like, I just lost interest. And at around the same time that I was working on Battle Barn, I was really working on my art. So I bought an iPad Pro. I was drawing a lot in the vector program, Vectornator, because the game required a lot of art, but also I was having a lot of fun practicing and drawing new characters and stuff for the game. And I started to realize that my art process was very iterative. So like I would make a bunch of characters, and I was very like, I'm not very judgy with the characters at all. Like I would draw them and be like, okay, next one, draw them, okay, that's not perfect, whatever, next one. I would just kind of like make them without judgment, right? Just kind of start them over and over again and start a bunch of characters. But then I would come back to them and I would do like iteration passes. So like after a few days I would come back and I would say, oh, well, this guy, he needs bigger ears, because I have clarity now, right? Like I can see my art differently. And so I would come back and I would fix all these. And sometimes these characters would take 2, 3, 4, sometimes even 5 iteration passes. But my art was so much better when I allowed myself to do that. If I had gotten stuck in the, I have to do this one thing and I can't touch anything else until I finish this thing, with my art, I would have probably not made as good art as I ended up making, and still I'm making. I still use this process, and so that got me thinking with like games, like maybe that's like the natural creative way to be, right? And for the longest time, like I said, I thought because I was a serial starter and a shiny object syndrome addict, I had to dedicate to a project and I had to completely finish it before I touch anything else. Otherwise it would just derail my motivation. But what I realized is my motivation gets derailed anyway. It's not really another project that steals it. It's just like it's way up here when you start a project, and then it just goes downhill from there, right? So it's like that's a natural process. But this idea of switching between stuff and then coming back to something and iterating on it really helps. And as you probably know if you've been watching the channel, at the end of last year, 2020, I got severely, well, it was the middle of 2020 actually. I got severely burnt out. I had a lot going on in my life. I did not want to post any more YouTube videos. I didn't want to work on games. I didn't want to do anything. And I was messed up, man. I was really burnt out. Launching the same game twice, which were completely different versions. Like there's a ton of extra stuff in the Steam launch, and then, you know, I think it was a lot of like the 4 years on a game not really making back its development costs. Not that I expected it to, obviously. Like it was my first project, first commercial project, and then like lots of personal stuff and just working on games nonstop, pushing myself, putting all this stress, putting all these deadlines on it. I was just done, man. And I couldn't touch a computer. I couldn't touch a computer. Luckily, my brain did not classify the iPad as a computer. That's probably because I'm smart enough to not allow any notifications on my iPad. I don't have email on there. I don't have Discord on there. I don't have anything on there that notifies me. So it's like a drawing device, which is, my brain's like, okay, that's fine. But a computer, no, we don't want to touch that. But I started making physical prototypes with my girlfriend Alyssa, and it started. I ordered these blank cards on Amazon, and I just started like drawing on there, and we would make these little games and just mess around that way. And I started to realize that, like, even though I was severely burnt out, that new medium, that physical touch, that being able to interact with another person, because I'd never made multiplayer games before, right, really helped. And I started to realize that, like, hey, if I work on these different games and I hop around a little bit, but I keep them separate, like in this phase of like, I want to just experiment, right? Like no pressure, kind of like I'm doing with my art and my character design. I could hop around a little bit more, and it was so much less stressful, and it really helped with the burnout. There's actually a GDC video along these same lines called Battling Burnout, the side project ritual, which I recommend you watch. I'll link that down below. But she talks about something similar to this, about how side projects can actually help with burnout. And I'm a believer now. I think everybody's different, so I think whatever your weakness is, like if it's serial starting, if it's shiny object syndrome, you gotta be careful the projects you start. But I am in such a better place now with Battle Barn, and with my development kind of shifting between these projects, and everything takes longer, and it's not as efficient business-wise, right? But like as a solo dev, well, not anymore with my upcoming card game, Murder Bunnies. Got a co-designer, Alyssa, helped tremendously on that. But like Battle Barn, I'm a solo dev. That kind of stuff is hard to do on your own. Like big projects, lots of art, lots of code, lots of music, like doing all that stuff by yourself is just like, it can burn you out. These are massive projects, and we severely underestimate how much these projects can actually take out of us. So realizing that, and then realizing how much energy I could actually get from like swapping between projects when I'm kind of bored of one, was really important for me. So at the end of the day, can you juggle multiple projects successfully? I think you can. Again, it's going to depend on who you are as a person, what your personal needs are. I don't know that I could do this and trust myself pre-Philophobia, pre-commercial Steam launch, because I feel like I needed the discipline of like actually finishing and launching, and I needed that experience to get to this point. But now I feel like it helps me tremendously. I feel like it might have distracted me before Philophobia launch, so that's something to bring up. But I just wanted to share my thoughts on that, because I feel like this is something that I've really discovered over the last several months and really years of game dev. And I used to be really against projects because like I'm all about finish it. I'm all about finishing your shit and getting it out there, and having multiple projects delays the finishing. But at the same time, like if you're having burnout issues and you're having motivation issues, sometimes swapping between that stuff and iterating and jumping between projects can really help. That being said, I really want to say thank you to all of the patrons that have stuck with me over these last couple months, last year or two, with the sporadic content and all this stuff. If you want to be a part of this list, you can go to patreon.com/GameDevUnderground. There's lots of cool stuff there. But I appreciate every single one of you YouTube viewers as you are. I appreciate you being part of this community. And if you want to join the Discord channel, we actually do multiple events every single week where we hang out, we talk, we have voice chat discussions, we do game nights, we do all kinds of stuff. Link to that Discord will be down in the chat, in the description as well. You can come chat on Discord. My brain's getting confused. Anyway, I love you all. Thank you for watching. My name is Tim Roswick, and I will see you in the next video.